creature feature. Creature feature, feature creature. This is another one that gives you a full, get some bang for your buck. Let's see, it's got a, let me get the cover up here. Let's get you going. Ba-da-bum. Okay. This is designed for use with old school essentials. This one was the first of, I think the third one is in the final phase of Indiegogo. And when I get a chance, I will post a link to the Indiegogo for that. That would be volume 3. This is volume 1. This is the cover. The one way this is set up is you get a zip file, which has a few things into it. So one thing in the extras is that we've got this document, and this actually has the cover as a separate file from the PDF. So I'm showing the cover right now. When we get to the PDF, it's just going to show the table of contents. So just for purposes of having something nicer to look at. Besides that, I have this cover up. Obviously, you can get a sense of the art style here, but you also get paper minis, files that you can print out for creating paper minis, and then also tokens for virtual tabletops. They are in, looks like they're all in PNG format, and I don't know anything about different tabletop, what their formats are, but for example, you get something like that. So this would be a PNG, so obviously there's transparency there, and then the image, so you can use that, and I'm guessing Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, whatever will take PNGs, will accept PNGs as image files. So you get, again, they're right, there's a few things in here. So you don't only have the PDF here, which will have everything, but you have virtual minis and printable minis. And then we'll see. So there's no real intro, right to the table of contents. I'm not going to read all of these. One thing, and again, it's really more of a stylistic thing. So here's the creature, right? I probably would have liked if we could have fit it on here because it just seems weird and to have that and then that and then that, or maybe started that over here, but we like the artwork. And by the way, I really like this. I like the artwork for the creature, but I also like that you have some kind of scale. And they could have done this in different ways, but I kind of like here you have just sort of a vanilla, humanoid, medium creature here, so you can kind of get a sense for a feel. Because sometimes I like to do that if I'm describing an encounter. I'll like to say something like it's about 3 man sizes tall, right? It feels like 3, whatever. And I can eyeball that and say, okay, that's around 2. And it doesn't have to be exact because they're not taking out a tape measure, but they're looking at it. So yeah, this is 2 man heights tall kind of thing. So here we have the Arbori, large feline humanoids with a primitive tribal culture. At 1, okay, so large, we know the size, you get something about it, it's humanoid, and I also like to give this little thing, so maybe if I'm reading this on the fly, a random encounter, I just can eyeball that, and I can kind of get a sense of the kind of culture that these creatures have. It's tribal, and it's maybe not as advanced as the culture that the PCs might be familiar with. A box has got all the essentials, their armor class, hit dice, attacks, THAC0, their movement rates, saving throws, their alignment, their morale. Always good to have morale, how much experience they get, and then what is NA? NA and T, treasure type, okay, NA, number appearing. I might use a hash instead of the N, just because that, to me, if I read hash A, I would have said, number appearing would have triggered better than NA, but that works. So we can see right here, they have poison. Those that fail a save suffer -2 to all rolls for 1d6 turns, and their movement is halved. They have a little bit of a resistance towards cold and poison, and they are very, very stealthy, even though they're large. So they're large, but they are stealthy. Then we get the picture. Here we see the description. You see a large and muscular humanoid with a broad, slightly feline head. Its face is framed by tufts of fur. Its eyes are large and round, sitting low in its face, framing its snout. The eyes are highly reflective and seem adapted to low light conditions. The creature's mouth is also quite wide and brimming with menacing fangs. The front 4 are dagger-like, but the canine teeth curve outwards like scimitars. The teeth seem to have an oily sheen to them. That's a little hint about the poison, I would gather, which I like it, right? So if you get this description and you're, as a player, you don't jump the gun and just say, I attack, but you listen, then maybe you think about that oily sheen, might give you a little pause. Maybe you think, oh, something's different with those giant teeth. They're not just giant and nasty and dagger-like and scimitar-like, but they seem to be coated in some kind of substance. Its hands and feet are tipped with thick and vicious-looking claws. They look to be equally useful for combat and climbing. So another hint, I'm assuming, maybe I'll just go back really quick. They have a climbing speed. Yep, they have a good climbing speed. So again, another hint in the description. You can get a little bit of their abilities. Despite the creature's obvious capacity for violence, it moves with a gentle grace. In this aspect, it also appears somewhat feline, seemingly tranquil and languid until the moment it strikes. The being will not attack unless hungry or provoked. The being, okay. I might have just used the name of the creature, but I guess this is, they don't say specifically, but this obviously seems something you might want to read to the players, or you could read, and so they obviously don't want to put the name of the creature, the species in there, but I don't know, being, maybe I might have said creature, but whatever, you can freelance with these as much as you want. Will not attack unless hungry or provoked. It speaks a heavily accented form of Elvish and will attempt to communicate with those it thinks are non-threatening. All right, so there you go. I just wanted to see that it doesn't give an intelligence, but I guess it has a primitive. That's where some kind of intelligence might have been good in there, right? Because this one, if you look at the picture, it seems like just a giant, nasty, cat-like creature, but obviously it's capable of speech. I was going to say it's neutral alignment. All right. And I like, so here we go. We got the description, which was good, right? Player facing. Now we have an area on lore, which I'm guessing is going to be more GM facing, but you can obviously peel off some knowledge here to spit out to your players if they make the whatever checks you want to make, or if they have a background or something else that might make it appropriate. These creatures are known as arbori or arbori. Their origin is a bit murky. The reclusive nature of the species has hampered any significant research of them, but there are some observations and speculation. Some sages claim the species originated in a laboratory and are kin to owlbears. But while owlbears are much more bestial and seemingly incapable of forming even a rudimentary society, the arbori have a developed tribal culture. They have defined social structure with a chief and shaman at the top. They live about 50 years and mate for life. They tend to have 3 or 4 offspring, which reach maturity within 5 years. On a technical note, I'm not sure why there's so many sentences beginning with but. Sorry, I'm just being picky. I just happened to notice that. But we got some cool little lore here. They're reclusive. One thing I might do, and again, this is just me, is this is something where I'd like to see bullet points, because then I can grab out a bullet point and see, maybe even have it on a table, right? Things that might be known. Roll 1d6 and you're going to get maybe bits of these. One might be, hey, they're known as arbori. 2 might be they're reclusive. 3 might be, thing about potentially from a laboratory. And maybe put parentheses rumor, right? Or made in a lab. And that kind of thing. Or you could structure them and like, here's the easy stuff, here's the harder stuff, here's the stuff that barely anybody knows. We're getting a little bit more about the saliva. The saliva of an arbori is quite poisonous. They use this to their advantage when hunting larger and more powerful creatures. They often use pack hunting tactics and their environment to their advantage as well. A common example of their hunting practice is herding some huge beast, such as a mammoth, into a narrow canyon, where a large group of the hunting party is waiting patiently in rocky scrub overhead. Rocky scrub overhead. Okay, so the rocky scrub must be on the top of the canyon. Because, you don't think of scrub as being floating in midair. Once the beast is in the trap, they spring down onto its back and begin to savage it with envenomed tooth and rending claws. Excuse me. This tactic has proven quite effective for them. Okay, so I'm guessing that really the canyon, which must be relatively shallow, otherwise, you can't see dropping from the Grand Canyon screaming down, but they kind of hide up top. In comes the prey, which gives you some ideas of how that they might encounter the party. Again, with this is great information. I feel like for quick use, I might like these bullet pointed out. Or even give me some bolding, something to say, hey, pack tactics, right? They'll use pack tactics. They like preferred. It could be something you could say, hey, preferred, and you know where you might encounter them. Preferred hunting thing is canyons, ambushing from above, maybe, because then you could think, okay, maybe they're in the trees because they can obviously climb that aspect, even though they're heavy. Depending on the forest, if you're in giant redwoods, they could be up there. In this case, it's great information, but in the paragraph form, it reads well, but I have to read through it to get it. And for something like this, my use case, I guess, would be like, hey, bullet points, but still, it's great information. And here we get the ecology. As their name would suggest, most arborii can only be found in forests. They seem to prefer colder climates, although there are rumors of a jungle variety as well. They are a generally peaceful and reclusive folk that prefer to construct their settlements deep within thick and ancient forests, far from the realms of mankind. They avoid cities completely, but have been known to barter with small settlements of woodland folk from time to time. Okay, so we get a little right there in forests, maybe in jungles, not big on cities, but every once in a while someone could run into contact with them. I am officially out of drinking fluids. Here we go. They call it seeds, but I guess this is really adventure seeds. I might just spell out. Again, pet peeve time. Why call it seeds? Just spell out adventure seeds. You have plenty of room there. Just make it clear. I know, I mean, for a lot of people, we talk in terms of adventure seeds, but remember, somebody might get this who's not. They might read seeds and kind of go, what is that? And then you have to kind of read below to figure out what they meant up top, where there's just, I think calling it adventure seeds or adventure prompts, just make it, but just put adventure on the end of it. And you can use, you know, if you want to talk about it later and call it seeds, kind of in a, if you're talking about it a lot in a section, that's fine. But here we're just getting bulleted points, and there wasn't an intro that was letting us know how this worked. Just called adventure seeds. But given that criticism merely of the layout part aspect of it, I appreciate very much the fact that they have given us seeds for these. There are 2 of them, so that is bonus, right? I just wish, I mean, because I know what they're talking about, but I just feel like if you're doing this for an audience of whomever it might be, right? Someone who's potentially 10 or 12 or somebody who's coming at it, knows nothing about it, but they saw this stream and they said, let me go out and get it. Since there's no real, particularly since there's no introductory text, and even if there was, just spell it out. You've got room on the page. You wouldn't have had to redo any kind of layout work to get that in there. Anyhow, let's get on to what these seeds are. A small group of arborii has approached the party's campfire in the night. Their intentions are peaceful, but how will the party respond to these fearsome giants silently padding into the firelight? Why have the arborii made their presence known to the party? Do they wish to trade? Do they want the party to leave their territory? Perhaps they would like to warn them of a greater threat in the woods. So here we have a great, could be a random encounter. You could add this to your encounter table, and it gives you some ideas. Or maybe you've added this to your encounter table, and when you look them up, you could look at this and say, okay, why are they here? It doesn't have to be violent. And maybe I would think about what are the party doing? How might these tie in, to that? So that's good. Then here's another one. A new human settlement has set about clearing some woodland to make way for farms. They have encroached upon the territory of an arborii tribe and have drawn their ire. Perhaps the encroachment was innocent enough, but now the consequences are mounting. Perhaps the tribe begin to fight back by damaging farm equipment and homes. If that fails, they move on to stealing livestock. A direct physical confrontation will be the tribe's last resort, but it will be inevitable if the settlement continues. Why has the party been brought into this situation? Are they here to investigate, negotiate, or exterminate? So whereas the other one was more of a random encounter, I feel like seed, I mean, it could be an adventure seed, right? But, you just get the sense that they're out camping, that there's something already going on, and that is the adventure. And then this could either be a wrinkle or a twist to that adventure, or, a random seed or something else, or just a random encounter, and they can make of it what they will. But this one seems more like a real adventure where you could look at this and say, okay, the party's been summoned here, and I'm as GM, I'm going to figure out why they've done it, or why the party's brought in, why the arborii, or what the arborii have done, what the settlement has done. There, actually, I watched a few weeks ago, I think it was a Stargate SG-1 episode that was a lot like this, where there was it Naquina or whatever the substance that starships are made of on that show, and they'd gone us through some Stargate to some world that had these Naquina mines that still had some good Naquina in them. They had to dig in and get it. But this other slave species, so, what are they called? what's the name of the bad guys? The name is on the tip of my tongue, but I am forgetting it anyway. Those bad guys, the Guaul, I guess, or however they pronounce it, used humans as slaves. They also use these other creatures as slaves. They use these other creatures who actually are kind of similar in some ways to their arbori, but they're kind of strong. They're big. They're primitive society. I don't know if they lived in trees and they weren't feline to my recollection, but maybe they were already living there, and so they had to figure out how to make it all work. And one of the guys, the one scientist guy, the kind of James Spader guy from the movie, but the TV show version, had through earlier episodes had become friends with one, and he spoke a little bit of the language, so he was able to kind of work out this détente for it. But it's very similar. And I wouldn't even doubt it if the idea for this came from that, because it does have a lot of very similarities, at least in that adventure hook. And here we have some loot, right? Spears, skulls, rocks, and assorted shiny things. Fetish tomes, slings, nets, a leather sack containing assorted berries, salted meat, unknown origin. I'm not sure what that means. That means it could be salted human meat, salted dwarf meat, stone tools, and a primitive tinder kit. One thing I might do here is put them in a list. I always like things where if I have a die or I don't know, I can roll a die to figure it out. So I'm always put, hey, look, if you have something that seems like a list, put it in a list, put numbers, and maybe round it to the nearest die. That way, even if you don't say roll a die, I can look at it and say 12, D12, 20, whatever. I just like that. So I would say do that. And the thing is that maybe I would split these up. I said one of them seems more like a random encounter, and one of them seems more like an adventure seed. I know you could run the first one as an adventure seed. Just reads to me more like something I might just put into an existing adventure. And then I might take that and kind of just lay it out a little bit differently, because I'm thinking about it in terms of if I have it and I got a minute to look at it and get everything I need. So I want things that allow me to do that. And the paragraphs, I have to read through that, which means, I can't grab it quite as quickly. I have to kind of read it, interpret it, and then spit it out, I can just kind of find the bullet list. But great stuff. So I'm just going to go through some of these. I don't want to read them all. Obviously, there's how many of these have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 of these. But let me just see which one's interesting. So they are Arbori, very cool. Blade Wraiths, that one looks cool. Cerebarian, right? Or Cerebaran from Cerberus, right? The dog of the underworld, hound of the underworld. Devourer. I'll read the Devourer. That one looks pretty cool. An accursed race of degenerate giants, and their heads are a little more than fanged maws sprouting from their shoulders. Oh, that's cool. I thought about something. So I said before I would have rather they put the pictures on the page with the descriptions. But I wonder now if they do that so that you could have that handout, and say, here's the monster, and it's not giving away any other details, which is a smart thing. The only thing I might then do is have the other stuff on this page. Like, I feel like there's just a lot of dead space here that makes me go past the picture to get to it. And I might do the picture, then all the text can just flow, and I can maybe have a better flow to it. But it's a small niggle. But now I'm thinking about it, maybe it makes sense that they would put the picture on its own page. That way you could either traditionally print it out or have a printed version and show it, or on a virtual thing, put it up on something you can share on your VTT of choice. So these guys have HD 15 hit dice, so they're big fellas. 2 claw attacks. Got their THAC, their movement, saving throws. Let's see, they can blind sight, so they can quote unquote see in total darkness. They're immune to sensory attacks. They're immune to mind affecting or mind reading style spells. They can only harm them with magical attacks, and they can swallow you whole if they roll 20 or 4 more than the target number. I always like that. Like the X more than the target. I might round it to 5 instead of 4, but that's me. Let's see, and if you're horse-sized or smaller, I might just use medium. I don't know, but I know in OSR they don't really give you sizes. That's one of the things I have to say that from the modern game I like, is looking at something and having some kind of ballpark idea without having to parse out a lot what size it is compared to regular. So I guess I would say that, I don't know, is a horse large or medium? Maybe a horse is large, so large or less. Let's see, may attack. Oh, okay, inside. If you're inside, you suffer 3 to 6 damage per round. You can attack with sharp weapons at -4. The body's digested in 6 turns after death. So I guess if you are digested and killed and you want to try to get that person out for, some kind of resurrection or whatnot, you need to get that body out in less than 6 turns. That's pretty fast. 6 turns, it's an hour. They got fast stomachs. Fast stomachs. All right, so now we can see how, well, they are huge, right? I like, again, we have our, not only the picture, but also an idea of the scale. So they are super big, and yeah, looks like definitely looks like they could get that whole silhouetted dwarf fighter human type into their mouths in one bite. All right, let's get to the description. A towering monstrous humanoid larger than a 2-story inn. I think is that how you spell it? 2-story? I mean, it's spelled EY here, and I think Y, but I don't know. I could have it wrong, and maybe it's a British English versus American English thing. It has no head beyond a gaping, fang-filled maw. It has long, muscular arms tipped in vicious-looking claws and stubby legs. The beast appears largely insensate. It doesn't respond to sight, scent, or sound, but has a basic awareness of its immediate vicinity, at least as much as appears necessary to continue its path of gluttonous carnage. That's a sentence fragment, I believe, but okay. Maybe it's a stylistic thing, like starting sentences with butts, and here's a fragment, but that just might be the kind of tone that this author has. As it goes about stuffing whatever bits of flesh it can find down its gullet, it burps and farts. Okay, not sure I need to know that. TMI there. What's it called again? Devourer. TMI, Devourer. Occasionally, it pauses for a few moments and mumbles a string of nonsense syllables. Scholarly PCs might recognize it as an ancient dialect of the language of giants. This is not an effort to communicate. The creature seems incapable of communication. Well, that's an interesting kind of red herring, right? So if they hang around and listen to it for a while or observe it, they could potentially get a string of random gibberish that's in giantish, and that might lead them to try to go and try to do something along those lines, but it is all for naught. And you could have some fun with them trying to figure out or how long they will take, what steps they will take that will ultimately fail with them trying to communicate or leverage this giantish gibberish that it speaks. Here we have some lore. Legend says that devourers were a race of giants that possessed the hubris to wage a war against a god. As a punishment, the deity took their heads. Those heads now adorn plushly upholstered alcoves in the god's favorite cottage somewhere. A little humor. Unfortunately for the multiverse, the devourers possess the supernatural vitality of all the ancient giants, and their bodies did not die once separated from their heads. The necks instead grew teeth, which then over time turned into a gaping, fang-filled maws. And eventually, a noble race of giants degenerated into portly, mumbling, self-propelled appetites with the strength to level villages. Luckily, as the centuries passed, their numbers seem to be decreasing. All right, so that's a nice story, right? Ecology. Devourers are blind, deaf, and lack a true sense of smell. In some limited manner, they are able to scent at the air using their tongues as a snake does. To compensate for these limitations, the creatures have developed an unknown way to sense their immediate environment. But this sense does not convey much beyond the presence of something existing and that thing's proximity. Additionally, the range of the sense is quite limited. All right, so they are clearly not going to be scanning out, right? They get a little bit of what's in front of them. I don't know if I saw if they gave it distance. Blind sight. They don't give a distance. That might be something to add here as well. Exactly what is that? So they're big. So even if something's not far away relative to them, might be 60 feet or 90 feet. And that seems a lot for a medium-sized person, but they're huge. So to them, instead of it being, oh my gosh, 10 body lengths away, to them, it's only a couple of body lengths away. So I might like to know the number, but of course I can always figure it out myself. Let's see. The supernatural vitality that once infused them has waned over the centuries, and they can now be truly slain. But the same mortality makes their hunger even more acute. Their colossal bodies require massive amounts of calories. For any that encounter a devourer, the wisest recourse is simply to flee. The creature's limited perceptions make them relatively easy to avoid, and eventually their hunger will drive them to seek sustenance elsewhere. As the centuries pass, the number of these creatures are indeed shrinking. Many are slain or die in some foolish way, and the chances of a male and female encountering and successfully mating are also exceedingly rare, although not unheard of. Okay, so you're not going to see these a lot. Here we have some seeds. Let's see, this time we get 3. A depraved wizard has been breeding devourers in captivity. Does he plan to merely keep them as oddities in a menagerie? Does he hope to utilize them as troops? Is he experimenting on them for some other mysterious or nefarious purpose, right? So again, this one doesn't read so much as an adventure seed, though it could be if you add the language of somebody's heard of this wizard or word has gotten out and somebody somewhere has another plan, right, that you would then be recruited as adventurers to do. Oops, I'm just adjusting my seat here. My seat has slipped. Ugh. Right, so there's, as it stands, that seems, again, more like a random encounter kind of thing. Maybe you come across this wizard's house and you see it, but it could be an adventure seed. Just needs a little bit more. You'd have to think about a little bit more of how the adventurers get this information and what the angle is. Maybe the wizards hired them for some needs. Maybe someone else has hired them to stop them. You know, the ASPCA, or what's the other one? You know, they're keeping devourers in captivity, which is bad. Okay, a cult has stumbled upon rituals that will allow them to summon and control these monsters. They are in the process of summoning as many devourers as possible. They plan to offer the nearest village as a sacrifice and then enact a ritual to enslave the beasts. Right, so could be a random encounter. Could also be an adventure seed, but we'd have to add in the extra bits about how we're getting this information, and then whoever has that information, what do they want the party with, or what does the party decide to do with that information? And then the third one, a guild of monster hunters has recruited the party to exterminate a small family of devourers infesting a distant kingdom. They have reports of at least 1 mated pair and 3 whelps currently wreaking havoc. The work will be dangerous and the pay high. So this one's more of a true adventure seed in that you have a party who has an angle on the scenario, which is these rampaging family devourers, and now they are asking the party to go and deal with it, right? That's what the other 2 seeds here are lacking. They're more just giving you a situation, which when you kind of hand that off to me, I feel like more is something you could add to a random sort of encounter situation, or maybe if you're hex crawling, right, you could mark out a hex and mark it with here's the depraved wizard breeding devourers, and then here's where the cult and maybe the town, and then the cult out here in the distance. So you could use them in different ways. But that third one seems more like this is more of a traditional, as much as in this instance, fully fleshed out adventure seed. And then we have some loot. All devourers' loot will be contained in this massive gut. As a general rule of thumb, there will be 1d4 semi-digested adventurers and their gear. This is in addition to what is indicated by treasure type E. However, items that are not durable enough to withstand its stomach acid will not exist. So, items such as scrolls, staves, and leather armor, etc. should be re-rolled at the referee's discretion. Additionally, it has a ragged and filthy loincloth the size of a tent. It's got to have a nice smell attached to that, I would think. What I might do here is, instead of saying re-roll leather and things like that, no, keep them. And then you can use instead, okay, so you have leather armor that was in there. The leather armor has been dissolved, but there's going to be little fasteners, little bits of brass or steel or iron in there. You could have all the little bits. Maybe it's not 100% dissolved. You see little bits of leather. Maybe just the tiniest little bit of a scroll, or just there's a little wrapper or something, like a ring that maybe the scroll was had a ring that was holding it. And you could add those little details. Or, of course, you re-roll them. Again, I might like some of this listed out in a way, but this one's more harder to do because you have to figure out all those adventurers and their gear. That's kind of something where maybe I might think about what those adventurers have and make some kind of table out of it. But of course, I think, you're trying to keep it, I'm guessing, to about 3 pages kind of for each monster. So you're limited in your space. Fallen Celestial. It's kind of cool. I like it. Hound of Tindalos. Was that something from Monty Python? The picture definitely has that Monty Python thing to it. At least in the main, not the details, but maybe just the overall. Lurking Glutton. Ravenous Floating Maws. Oh, someone from the chat. Good day, sir, says Monkey Work. Oops. Hello. Okay, the lurking glutton. Let's see what the. Oh, is there a picture for this one? Oops. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Oh, look at that. Yoinks. That's a lot of teeth, a really big tongue, and it's big. All right. A mantid stitch golem. Pack hunting undead predators stitched together from various corpses, human and otherwise. Wow. Well, look at that thing. Well, what creatures is it getting those side legs from? Definitely gross and creepy. And the art, by the way, art, very cool. Very nice art. Okay, Ooze Lich. All right, I'm going to read the Ooze Lich. That was just, I mean, there are two things that just speak awesome. Liches, oozes. How can you go wrong by combining them into an Ooze Lich? An Ooze Lich is a magic user cursed to undeath as a toxic oozing mass. Yep, this is gold. All right, HD 11. It has 11 hit dice plus 1. Let's see. Monkey Work says, I really like how they put a silhouette of a hero next to the monster to get an idea of size. Yeah, I said this before. And yeah, it's a great thing. Anything that can help utility, right? I'm all about utility. And you can look at that picture, or you can hand that picture out to the adventurers if you want, your party, your players, and they can immediately get an idea of how big it is next to them. So yeah, that's excellent. And they made those silhouettes artistic too. They could have gone with some kind of dummy, a mannequin, but they didn't. They made them interesting, and it seemed like right now the silhouettes kind of have some variance to them, each. So well done. I applaud it. I applaud that effort. It's a little extra. Okay, I don't really care so much about the box text. It does have some claw attacks. Let's see. It's got an acid. After a successful attack, it sticks to the victim and exudes acid. The acid inflicts more damage. Oh, per round. And destroys cloth, leather, or wood in 1 round. Stone and metal are unaffected. All right, so get your metal on. Fighters to the front. Cling, it can move across walls and ceilings. Non-fire attacks cause the Ooze Lich to divide. Each hit creates a half hit point fragment that does half damage. Each hit creates a half hit point fragment. What does that mean, a half hit point fragment? Maybe they'll say more about it, but at least we know the big point is that even that little tiny, whatever it is, half hit point fragment does half damage, so it will still hurt. Paralysis for 3d6 rounds. It's got magical powers. It can cast darkness and phantasmal force at will, and then animate dead 3 times a day. You need magic or silvered weapons to hurt it. Has regeneration. It can squeeze through holes and cracks. It's got telepathy. Can communicate. Let's see. It's undead. Doesn't make any noise until it attacks. It's immune to stuff that would affect living creatures. It is vulnerable to light. -2 to hit in brightly lit areas. Sunlight will destroy them. An Ooze Lich in direct sunlight must make save versus death every round to be disintegrated. And then I suppose, I don't know if an OSR is there, the sunlight kind of spell, but I imagine that kind of, if they had a spell that mimics sunlight, you could get a similar effect for it. And here we get the picture. So again, I like the silhouette, right? It's a little bit different than the other silhouettes we've seen. It's definitely a creepy ooze-like thing. So it's, now, at least with the picture, it does keep its shape somewhat. It's not completely just a complete ooze. It might have been interesting, and obviously you could do this yourself in your game if the Ooze Lich looked more or less like a regular ooze, and it's just hanging around, but yet it's got, or maybe it's kind of vaguely in the shape of a skull. That would have been interesting, but obviously here's their rendering, and change it. Still, it's very creepy. Let's get the full description here. A foul oozing mass of putrescence, tasty, vaguely resembling a human skeleton. It looks as if most of its body is composed of some sort of congealed, grayish, semi-translucent, ropey sludge. Nice use of the term ropey. Oh, Will in the chat. Welcome, Will. What if it looks like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers? Guess what, Will? I have no idea who that is. I didn't watch Power Rangers, so keep that reference to yourself. Where was I? The skull seems to be the most solid part of the whole sickening thing, but upon closer scrutiny, that too is shown to be some sort of coagulated gel. The thing reeks of charnel house and rot. always down with charnel house and rot. The creature is intelligent and capable of communication via telepathy, but likely considers anything it comes across as prey. However, if an enterprising and imaginative individual manages to spark its curiosity, it might be bartered with. Oh, Monkey Works. I'm coming late this stream. What is the title of this book? This is Creature Feature Quarto Numero Uno. And there are 3 of these. All right. The last one. So this is Creature Feature Quarterly number 1. There is a volume 2, or sorry, Quarterly volume 1. There is a volume 2, and there is a volume 3, and I will put the link when I have a chance into the description later, and maybe into the stream, the chat if I get a chance. It is in the last parts of an Indiegogo. So it's currently there, and I have a sample monster from there, or at least maybe more than one. But this is the first one. And if it's up on drive-thru, I will post a link to it. I think it is, but I don't know for sure. I'll have to take a quick look. But that's what it is. And just to recap the features, not only do you have this PDF that's got all the pictures and all the stats and all that, you also get tokens for use in your virtual tabletop of choice and minis you could print out for using in-person games. So get a few things. Get some bang for your buck. So we have the lore. Legends say these creatures are the damned remnants of sorcerers and other such dabblers in the dark arts that made alliances with or somehow ran afoul of particular demonic forces aligned to a rawer, baser form of entropy than most of the demon lords. All right, so that's a little interesting. Oh, he found it. Great. These beings possess many of the same qualities as a standard ooze, pudding, or slime, but are motivated by a much keener and more malign cunning. For they were once mortal flesh and mortal blood themselves. In addition to consuming the flesh of their prey, they also consume its life force. It is supposed that it is for this reason they enjoy toying with their victims. They often lure prey through illusion and other forms of artifice into compromising situations. For example, they might lead a character into a room with a concealed door that slams shut behind them, leaving them in a confined space all alone and at the tender mercies of the Oozlich. So there we go. Oozlich, how it works. The ecology of the Oozlich. These disgusting things are undead, and as such, many mortal necessities and frailties no longer trouble them. But it has been surmised that they do weaken over time if denied flesh. Some argue mere flesh and blood will not sustain them indefinitely, but they must also inflict pain and suffering, and then bask in the miasma of woe. Not unlike, what was it, The Outsider from HBO? Am I spoiling The Outsider? Perhaps. They say these agglomerations of foulness crave misery as flowers do the light of the sun. Very poetic. They can be found at the bottom of spiked pits, waiting to sup on the last breath of an unlucky soul. That's a nice twist to a trap, for sure. But that makes it a whole lot deadlier than your average spike pit, which might be good or bad for you. They can be found slithering through the blood-soaked muck of battlefields. They may even be found in the sewers and latrines of plague-ridden populations. Nothing is beneath them. Well, all right. Let's see. The Seeds of Adventure. Whilst exploring, a member of the party is separated from the group. This will be by the design of an Oozlich. The separation will likely place the party member in a tight enclosed space, a space that would make drawing a sword or casting spells difficult. Maybe a 5x5 kind of corridor, maybe even something more slimmer. More slimming, tighter, right? Once the character is isolated, the Oozlich will begin to fill the space with its own form, engulfing them. It will whisper into the mind of its victim as its mere presence dissolves their flesh and steals their life. Well, that's definitely something that's, well, it's gross. Definitely useful. If you have a situation where your party's split and to make sense, you could drop an Oozlich on them. Though keeping in mind how powerful this thing is, you might want to make that a fairly rare occurrence. The second seed, a once flourishing but now ruined mining community, is rumored to possess fabulous treasures. The PCs are sent to seek out the laboratory of a wizard and retrieve as much of his research as possible. The client wants the research, but gives the party leave to take whatever else they desire. The PCs are not aware that the wizard in question moved to this isolated area to commune with some foul spirit the mining had unearthed. The wizard has since been transformed into an ooze lich and loosed a plague that devastated the community. It lingers there still and grows hungrier by the day. So that one again is more of a real right. Was the first one's kind of a random encounter. This is more of a true adventure seed. All right, so you have someone sending you to do something involved the ooze lich. The one thing is it's a lich, but it doesn't have that kind of phylactery element, so it's not lich-like in that regard. So that's kind of an interesting choice. It has a nice ring to it, ooze lich, but someone on a technical factor might say, well, it's not really a lich because it wasn't a transformation. It was a transformation, but no one that wasn't necessarily sought by the the magic user, and then it doesn't have that kind of phylactery kind of thing. But it's cool. And then we see the loot. Treasure type F. Rerolling anything that might have been destroyed by acid. Most of the loot will be mixed in with bones. There is a 20% of the lair. There is a 20% of the lair containing 1d6 prisoners. 20% chance. Missing word there. 20% chance of the lair containing 1d6 prisoners. In the lair, there is also a 20% chance of finding what appears to be a spellbook composed of thin metal sheets. Arcane formula are acid etched into these metal pages. Additional macabre esoterica may be found as well. So this seems to it's interesting because they talked about how this is kind of a punishment that maybe a wizard didn't want to transform into the ooze lich. But the spellbook seems to indicate that that someone had to anticipate becoming an ooze lich to then create a metal version of the spellbook that they could keep once they became an acidic ooze, or that post transformation, maybe they're suggesting that the ooze lich was able to create a metal spellbook and then use its own, write with its finger, an acid etch. Either way, interesting. A protocol imp. I'm just going to speed through some of these. Well, that's okay. So here in this case, it's smaller, right? So the the average medium creature is then taller than the creature here. I don't know if I would have. Here they swap sides. I think I might have kept everything on the same side, but I like it. Let's see. We get a star tyrant. I like that it's got kind of tentacle legs. Tatterdamelion, another lich. Scarecrow-like effigy of a wizard, writhing and twisting like a sheet in the wind. Well, that's very descriptive. It can move, so I guess it's not. All right. Definitely looks gross in sort of a haunted scarecrow kind of way. Let's see, we got some more stuff. A thaumagrue, an immense, maybe that's a typo. Immense, caterpillar-like. Is limence a word? I'm assuming it's not a word in the typo for immense, caterpillar-like demons, obsessed with the accumulation of arcane knowledge and power. Let's take a look at the picture. Is it truly immense? Yes, it is immense. And if limence is a word, perhaps it's also limence, but it's at least immense. Twist brute. A wall of densely muscled homicidal rage. All right. Whoa. That's an arm meant for destroying. Yeah, boy, you could impale a whole party on that one arm. Unseelie psychopomp. Some kind of darkling fae that herald death and the creeping eldritch corruption of the natural world. Yep. And right, so they're pretty small. But they got large hands. You know what they say about dark fae with large hands, don't you? Yeah, I don't know either. A war engine. Oh, cool. Kind of reminds me of the Destroyer. Is that what it is? Whatever the thing from Thor, right? Marvel. Was it a Destroyer? I don't know. I think it was called the Destroyer. It was cool, and this is cool too. And then we have some appendix. And then we got OGL stuff. All right. Just scrolling back all the way to the top. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back to the picture. It does have a cover. I'm not sure why the cover is separate. Maybe it's just because this cover is meant to be for its landscape instead of, I don't know. And that's that Devour, right? Well, what do I think about this one? Another thumbs up. The monsters all seem very interesting. All twists on things that you might find, but it has a different vibe to it. The art is all great. And like I said, I had said at first that I wasn't sure if I was wondering why they didn't put the pictures with the text to give it more of a flow and just save space. But obviously the reason is, I think, so that you can hold up those renderings along with the little silhouettes so they can see the size, so they can get the visual of the monster, but also immediately see kind of how big they are in case there are questions of if you say large or huge or whatever. You can say, no, it really is about this big. Look at, you decide. The artwork, as I said, is great. I think the information they give is good. I think I mentioned kind of at the beginning when I was sort of going through the first kind of the way it's laid out, I might have laid things out a little bit differently. I would prefer more kind of bullets and numbers, things that I can make it easier for me to roll dice on. I might have separated out the seeds, and some of them seem more like a random encounter idea, and some of them seem more true adventure seeds, and maybe giving those out, and maybe even one or two more of them. I know they had a lot of space that they're leaving. They're kind of leaving behind some space, and I might kind of either move things together, or if you could think of some more things, hey, put in that, give me some stuff in that space, those spaces to kind of flesh it out. But all the information is there. I like the way they, they kind of organize it in general. Like I said, I might have preferred a different layout just for ease of use, just the way I like to use things. But the overall layout is good. There is no intro or anything, which I might have had an intro letting me know kind of how everything's working and some things. I mean, it's fairly easy to tell. It's not arcane or anything, but it's just one of those kind of, it's nice as a human just to have a little something here. Let me tell you a little bit about this book. And instead it goes right in from the table of contents right into the monsters, which is obviously fun, is great for when you're using it just as a reference, but just, you don't know whoever is going to be in front of this thing. So to the extent that you can help somebody who might be a first-time reader and figure things out, it's good. But overall, I really liked it. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I can see myself using a lot of these beasts. I think they don't necessarily cover the entire gamut of different kinds of monsters, but that's okay. I don't feel like you have to have, oh, one of this, one of that, whatever. They're all interesting and weird and useful for different things. Like I said, it's very good. Now there's 3 of these. The author was kind enough to send me the 2, and then I will just do a quick look at the 3rd one, which is just a sample. I have not looked at it, so I don't even know how many are here, but we'll just give it a quick peek just to give you an idea. It's on Indiegogo right now. I think it's the last day or 2 or 3. So either grab it that route. I don't know if there's any kind of, if the pricing is different from Indiegogo to whatever it will be when it ends up somewhere else. But here we go. We'll preview booklet. Right. So this one, no separate file for the cover. Maybe because it's a preview, or I don't know if you just changed the style. And here we go. So this is one obviously specifically created as a preview. So you get some preview text. Here are the possible monsters that backers get to choose from for Volume 3. Only 16 will make it into the book. There's a link to the Indiegogo. There are some polls. I don't know if these polls are still running. There were too many options, so I had to divide them across 2 posts. So here we get some little capsules. So they're not all going to be in the book, but we get a little sampler. The Andat, like a cool scorpion-like abomination. The Adka, the Adorai, an Aradan, an Orhai, the Barkida. I'm not gonna read all these just because I gotta stop and get a drink, number one. My drink ran out, but the Bolak that was on the cover, Chirper. I suppose there's one thing you could say is they're all kind of humanoid for the most part, and maybe some more variations in the type of monsters. But man, there's so many of them. Here are some different ones, right? There we get a bird. That's cool. The Makari, kind of a drow-looking thing. Atavistic mutant spawn of a certain demonic spider queen, hint, hint, worshipped by some subterranean elves, right? Shamretta. That's very cool looking. What was that one? A Shadraz Ghoul. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. The Her. I'm a man of my Her. So just get some sample stats. I'm not going to read it, but we just get a bigger picture of what that one looks like. And then, so I didn't show the paper minis before, but here's, you can print these out. And then obviously you have to do some cutouts, and then you just get that. So look at that. Bum, 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 bum. So that's some of these. Some selection of these will be in volume 3, which again is in the dying throes as I record this. Maybe by the time you see it, it's already done. I will try to find links and post this in there. Cool stuff, right? I think if you liked, if you just, obviously you're in the stream where I just went over the first one. I feel like if you, that first one I went through in more detail was your cup of Joe, then that will probably also be your cup of Joe. More of that kind of stuff is good. You can always use more, right? Always use more. There you have more.